Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign review, this time covering Zhatan the Black. So Zhatan's start position is the Volary, which is in the northern Chaos Waste, just north of Cathay, and you start at war with Kazag, which is a minor Warriors of Chaos faction. Now these guys here are pretty straightforward to deal with, there's no sort of trick to them, you just smash, smash, smash your way across. Now in terms of looking for a trick start, if that's what you're looking for, it's not something that I would recommend in this campaign, but something that you should consider at some point is taking out Grimgor Ironhide. He's probably going to be the biggest thorn in your side in this campaign, because one of your main campaign mechanics is having extra active convoys. Now, Grimgor Ironhide hates Chaos Dwarves, and he also has anti-player bias. So if his armies are hanging around this general area, which they will, and they see one of your convoys about to get started, because they always start at Zarnagrand, he will pretty much declare war on you the first chance he gets, and will smash all of your convoys and camp out this way, which can be very frustrating. So one way to sort of prevent him from doing that is, firstly, kill him. That would be the best way, but that is time consuming and can be quite difficult on the higher difficulties because he pumps out a lot of armies. But the other thing that you can do is send a hero over here and just keep an eye out in this general area here. Have the hero move back and forth if you want to set up a convoy. And that way you can check if there's any greenskin armies in these two settlements. And if there isn't, then you can set up a convoy and try to get it on its way before Grimgor comes down with his morons and smashes up your 5-unit convoy. So that's something that you should consider if you're having trouble with your convoys with Zhatan's campaign. But outside of that, this start position here is probably the comfiest out of the Chaos Dwarf, other Chaos Dwarf factions on the higher difficulties on Immortal Empires. Now, let's talk about Zhatan himself. His trait is Labor Master, which gives casualties captured post-battle plus 15%, local recruitment capacity plus 1 for local province. So that way, other lords that are in the same province as him can also get benefit from it. It's just not just for him. Then you've got ability Sadistic Snare, which is essentially the same ability that Aranessa has, that basically nets them in a short range. Only a single unit will get it, and gives them a minus 24 melee defense debuff. It's a pretty good ability. Now, in terms of his skill line here, he's got a generic blue line, a generic red line, mostly generic melee line, although he does have Boundless Cruelty here instead of Foe Seeker. Now, personally, I feel like Foe Seeker is more useful than this, but it really just comes down to what kind of enemy you're going up against. So this one here is a area effect hex that increases in intensity depending on how many entities are within range of that 35 meters. So if you're fighting a single entity or like 1 or 2 monsters, then this probably isn't going to trigger at all. But if you're fighting things like goblins that have loads of entities and low leadership, then this is something that'll be fairly useful against that. But it's not something that I consider to be highly impactful. Then you've got Brutality of Tsar. This is a unique skill line here. Armor piercing, weapon damage plus 50, bonus versus large plus 15. Casualties captured post-battle plus 10%, income from post-battle loot plus 15%, labor gained post-battle plus 15%. Then you got the black, ward save plus 5%, passive ability regeneration. Now, I really like the regeneration skill. I'm pretty sure he's the only character that can like get it passively. And that does cause some weakness to fire, but because all the Chaos Dwarf characters have all got fire resistance, it's really not that big of a deal at all. So regen is just always good for them. And then you've got General of Tsar over here. Reduce upkeep cost minus 10%, casualty replenishment rate plus 10%, recruit rank plus 1 for the Lord's Army. Haughty Resilience provides armor plus 15 for the Lord's Army, leadership plus 5, melee defense plus 5 for the Lord's Army. And then Laughing Killer provides an additional 50 armor piercing weapon damage, perfect vigor, and enemy leadership minus 10 in the local region. So looking at Zhatan's skill line here, this is a good character for people that don't like building 1-unit spams based on, like, most legendary lords in this game will boost like 1 or 2 units, and so you're heavily incentivized to just like spam those units in those particular armies. But since Zhatan provides like just base stat reductions or increases, you can have whatever army you want. So this is going to benefit players that don't want to feel like they have to spam 1 unit type. You can have a variety of units in your army and it be completely efficient because he is boosting all of them equally. So I think that's really good for some players, because there's not many characters in the game that just don't specialize in any particular unit but instead boost their entire army. So that's quite good. But in terms of how he performs on the battlefield, obviously he's a very good melee fighter, extremely tanky. In terms of how he behaves and how unique his fighting style is, he's basically a very strong Overseer, which is the generic melee lord for the Chaos Dwarves. He doesn't really have any really cool, unique skills. And in terms of his mounts, he gets a Great Taurus and a Lamassu, which is the same as a generic Overseer as well. So I think that they really sort of missed the mark in making Zhatan actually unique. What Zhatan is just really strong. That's it. And I feel like that really misses the mark of what they said they were going to do with him. Because any character can get really strong by just, finding the right defeat traits and leveling them up enough. And that's kind of all Zhatan has to offer. And that just, his army will be a little bit better than other generic lords. If we have a look at his quests, and I think these items here will really sort of amplify the sort of problems that Zhatan has. So specifically with the Armor of Gazrak. So armor plus 20, melee defense plus 10, ability Armor of Gazrak. Now, this ability here, I gotta say, this is probably one of the worst abilities that I've ever seen implemented in this game ever. I think this is complete trash. So the way, on paper, it looks really good. Up to 30% damage resistance, that's huge, right? So that's 30% ward save. But the problem is that in reality, most of the time, you're not going to get that 30% damage resistance. And in order to get that damage resistance, you have to take a lot of damage. Now, here's the thing. The way that this effect works in the battlefield is that it's an active ability. It's not passive. You have to actually click and make it actually happen. It lasts for 48 seconds, which seems like a long time. And you need to take damage during this being active. So this isn't going to charge up unless it's being active, right? And the really worst thing about it is, let's just say that you get it to 30%, right? And you have like 2 seconds left to spare and then it runs out. The next time that you use this ability, you have to start again from 0%. Now, in the times that I've used Zhatan the Black, I have never managed to get his damage resistance up to 30% with one use of Armor of Gazrak. It usually gets up to about 10%. So, in terms of him, I would usually not equip this piece of armor. I would give him like a Armor of Destiny or even a Armor of Fortune. It's just not a good piece of armor. The melee defense is good for sure, but this ability here, it's just, in theory, seems good, but in practice, it's just crap. You have to take a lot of damage for this to be active, and it's just not really worth it. It's just a really silly implementation of an ability. Then we've got the Obsidian Axe, which is a good weapon. You got abilities Sundering Attacks, so that reduces armor. We've got weapon strength plus 25%, armor piercing weapons damage plus 100, and passive ability Obsidian Axe. See, this is a good ability here because this is passive. You don't have to activate it. It just builds up as the battle continues. As he gets more and more kills, his melee attack will increase and his armor piercing weapon strength will increase up to 50%. This is I feel like what they should have done for the Armor of Gazrak, but maybe not make it all the way up to 30%, because 30% damage resistance would be absolutely insane to have that passively for the rest of the battle, especially adding up his regeneration as well. But you just don't practically ever really get that 30%. Then you've got over here the Chaos Rune Shield, which gives casualty replenishment rate plus 15%. So Zhatan is able to replenish his army very quickly once he's got all of these equipment. Missile resistance plus 15, which is good only if you're actually on a mount, which a lot of the time I actually don't use him on his mount because it just depends on what we're going up against. If there's lots of missile units, I'll put him on foot because he could just fight for ages on foot. Whereas on these ones here, he gets shot out of the sky pretty quickly. So it just depends on what you want to do. Ward save plus 10%, which is always good. And then passive ability Chaos Rune Shield, which gives immune to contact effect in a 35-meter radius and affects all allies in range. So that's pretty good. So yeah. Then we've also got his set bonus, which gives him campaign movement range plus 5%, character's aura leadership plus 10, and leadership aura size plus 50%. I think that one's okay, nothing too huge, but I really don't like the Armor of Gazrak. I would just give him like a generic piece of armor instead, assuming you've actually got it. Obviously, if you don't have anything, then you might as well equip it. But if I've got an Armor of Destiny, I'll just equip that instead of it. Overall, I think that Zhatan the Black is probably the least interesting out of the three Chaos Dwarf Legendary Lords, and I think that Creative Assembly kind of missed the mark with this because I just don't think that his faction effects are very interesting either. Like, maximum number of active convoys plus 1 misses the mark because of Grimgore Ironhide, and convoys aren't really... I don't feel like they're that impactful, especially on the higher difficulties. and the recruitment cost minus 50% for artillery and war machines, I don't feel like that's impactful as a mechanic that sets him apart from the other Chaos Dwarf Legendary Lords. So my recommendation would be to play as one of the other Chaos Dwarf Legendary Lords and confederate Zhatan the Black so you can get use of their better bonuses with Zhatan the Black if you're really interested in using him. But it's entirely up to you. He does have a comfier start position for sure. So it's not that I'm not recommending Zhatan the Black. I do think that the Chaos Dwarfs are good. I just think that if you had to pick between the 3 different Chaos Dwarfs for a campaign, that I would choose this guy last. That's my thoughts. But overall, I think that he is still fun to play. But I think that there are missed opportunities with this, specifically with Zhatan. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Zhatan the Black. Overall, I do kind of like the Legendary Lord, but I just like the other Legendary Lords better. That's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.